Tonight on ESPN, Monday Night Countdown starts at 5 p.m., and we got a doubleheader. The Bucs and the Texans at 7. You can watch that on ABC as well as ESPN, and then the Chargers and the Raiders, late night, 10 p.m. kickoff here on the East Coast, of course, part of ESPN's Monday Night Football doubleheader. And joining us right now to talk about that and much more, NFL, is Scott Van Pelt. Scott, Jake Asman in for Michael today. Really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Not at all. It's actually cool. I'm driving into the city as we speak. So hopefully I don't lose you in the tunnel, but I'm looking at the great city of New York as I'm chatting with you. Good to visit.
Well, let me tell you what, Scott. I think you're in for a good one tonight with these two games. But I mean, are you staying up late? Do you have the caffeine ready to go? I mean, this is a lot of broadcasting with these two games ending late.
My man, I've been at this for a while, and I'm hardwired as most East Coasters are. If you want to watch sports, you just sort of stay up late. So we'll be fine.
So we'll start local with you, Scott, because yesterday as a Jet fan, I went into it trying to think, okay, well, you know, no such thing as a moral victory, but there were a lot of positive signs with Justin Fields in the offense in Week 1. And just to see the Jets come out and look the way they did, I mean, I'm very disheartened because I thought with Aaron Glenn, things were going to be different. These type of performances were not going to happen. What did you make watching the Bills just absolutely beat down the Jets yesterday at MetLife?
I mean, you live it in a different way than I do as a Jet fan, but it's just from afar, I'm thinking, well, this is to change the characters, but it's the same movie, right? I mean, it's a new quarterback. There was optimism Week 1. New coach. There's optimism there, but I think what Buffalo has at the moment is I don't know. They're clearly going to be the bullies of the block, and they jump them early and get ahead. And then once they were ahead, they seemed to have Fields in hell. He couldn't get anything going. And so I think that on some level, you just played the gold standard team in the AFC East. So you can kind of just shrug and chalk it up to that. But you at least wanted to be competitive, and you weren't. And so that's where the gulf is, right? It feels very similar to what we've seen in years past as it relates to them just being kind of non-competitive as it relates to the best team in the AFC East. And for the longest, it was New England, and for the moment, it's now Buffalo.
And in terms of just what the expectations were for the Jets, Scott, I don't think anyone thought this team, was destined to win 10 games and be a playoff team. But I think one of the things we as fans were sold with Aaron Glenn is this team will be competitive. This team's going to be well coached, and it felt like that for Week 1. I mean, I guess we don't know who any team is just 2 games in, but to your point, it felt like a game that we as Jet fans have seen so many times, no matter if it's Robert Saleh or Jeff Ulbrich, Adam Gase, Todd Bowles, and I think that's why this fan base is down in the dumps today.
Yeah, and I think the thing, Jake, that I say every year, and I mean, I've done it for a long time. I try to get out of like these verbal crutches, but I mean, truly, the first month of the season, what do we really know, right? I mean, last week the headlines were the Detroit Lions, they stink, their offense is awful, or they score 52 the next week. Maybe it's just the Bears aren't very good, right? Maybe that's what we'll learn over time. I think Week 1 for the Jets I think they're closer to that than what we saw yesterday. I just think you're grading with a really sharp pencil when you go up against Buffalo, and there's a gigantic gulf between them and probably most teams.
Scott Van Pelt with us here in his weekly spot on the Michael K. Show. Jake Asman in for Michael. Monday Night Countdown coming up on ESPN today at 5, part of a doubleheader with the Bucs and the Texans at 7 and the Chargers and the Raiders at 10. Scott, how about the Giants? I don't think any Giant fan figured Russell Wilson was capable of throwing for that many yards and putting up that many points. Yet similar to the Jets last week, ultimately they don't win the game. What were some of your thoughts watching that shootout between Dak and Russ?
I try to be accountable, always have been. Like, you say stuff, you got to own it. I was the guy on the podcast with my guy Stanford Steve last week that said about Russell Wilson, he can't do it, okay? I'm looking at the end of last year in Pittsburgh where nothing went well. And then against Washington, and that's where I live, and I'm a Commanders fan and always have been. I'm thinking, wow, this defense looks pretty good and yada, yada. Well, Wilson was tremendous yesterday. He and Malik Neighbors, and not just him, Wan'Dale Robinson had an enormous day, and he threw for a zillion yards. And, there's a little bit of like, what are we doing with Dart and Scadaboo? I don't know. I mean, I get it. You're going to get the guy's feet wet with a little package there. But Wilson was excellent. It was just, unfortunately, the Giant fans, you're playing against a team who has a guy with a leg from 64 that's just absurd. And, Aubrey's able to tie it. And then ultimately, as great as Wilson plays, he throws, I don't know what that was, sort of a pop-up. I don't know if it was miscommunication or I don't think he got hit on the ball. I mean, just as great as he was, he made a mistake that ultimately led to the field goal that beat them. There are no moral victories, as you said earlier about the Jets, but the Giants looked entirely different yesterday against Dallas. And if Wilson can give you something approaching that, then all these chatter about we want to see Dart ought to die down very, very quickly.
Giants committed 14 penalties for 160 yards yesterday. And
Yeah.
Scott, have you ever seen one player, in the case of James Hudson, the left tackle who was benched after this, commit 4 penalties on a single drive? I've never seen something like that.
No, and I mean, I don't know. I always try to be reasonable. Like things I don't know, haven't lived. I just don't know how that happens. I don't know if you're just having you're almost glitching, like a glitch in the Matrix or something. But it was just one after another, and you're like, I mean, I get having a bad day, but man, it's an awfully big stage where the world's watching and it's all just going wrong. No, that's just it can't happen. I mean, it can't happen. You can say it's bad coaching. But again, I defer to my colleague Steve, about this, who played the game. He's like, people talk about coaching. At some point, it's on the guy. It's on the player. You got to hold your water, and you can't keep getting penalized.
Let's go around the league. Give us your thoughts on the Eagles going into Kansas City and once again knocking off the Chiefs. Chiefs in an 0-2 spot, which is something under Mahomes we've never seen.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by Philly that. The game had to mean more to Kansas City given that they're on their home field after they lost within their division to open the season, and they got absolutely stomped last year by Philly in the Super Bowl. So, you expect to see a spirited effort, and I don't know if Kelsey can hold it on the goal line, they lead 17-13, but he doesn't, and then we end up with a bunch of tush pushes. But I think with the biggest talking point beyond the Mahomes 0-2 start, I assume they'll largely be fine. I also just think they're not that scary bully on the block that they were for so many years. They look a whole lot more pedestrian than they had. But I feel like the talking point, and I don't know if it's come up, Jake, on the show, or if I just hear the chatter, like the down the line looks of that tush push on the goal line where you got Brady going, what are we doing? You got Dean Blandino on the Fox broadcast going, I'm done with this tush push. It's just too hard to officiate. Just saying, I can't tell you, are they calling it correctly or not? I felt like you saw both guards firing a little bit early. It feels like the kind of the flashpoint where the chatter is going to grow loud enough that this play will eventually go away just because the league just doesn't want to have a game that big with plays that are unstoppable and apparently ungovernable. That felt like the biggest talking point that came out of it. I'm friends with a ton of Eagle fans, and they're all like, just stop the play. And I'm like, I get it. I'd say the same thing if I were you. But also don't illegally fire off the snap before the snap. That seems reasonable too.
I'm with you. I think I saw Scott that the Eagles ran it for over 11% of their total plays on offense yesterday.
Correct.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have a ton of snaps because the offenses weren't great in either one. But I mean, when you got to play. That's the thing about what I don't like just as a fan of sports is when there's a play that's this your listeners that are old enough to remember Tecmo Bowl, okay, back in the day, video game. There was a Bo Jackson play that you just had to, as friends, you had to say, look, you can't run the Bo Jackson play. And then inevitably someone would run the Bo Jackson play, then you'd get pissed, you'd throw the controller, and you'd quit. Well, they have the Bo Jackson play. You kind of can't stop it. And, I happened to work with a guy that was, orchestrating it in Kelsey before he retired. And when he says, stop it, he's right. If it's well coached and well executed, no argument. But when you appear to be getting a head start on the play, that's where I feel like I think that the league's just going to be enough. Obviously, it won't happen until the off season, but, 11% of your snaps in a high-profile game of an unstoppable play is sort of a lot.
Scott Van Pelt with us here. Couple quick hitters for you, Scott, that we'll let you run.
Of course.
Give us your reaction to Joe Burrow. Unfortunately, the reports are out from Adam Schefter and a bunch of other outlets that he's going to need toe surgery and he could be out at least 3 months.
Yeah, I wish there were a more eloquent way to say it. It just sucks. I think Joe is the ultimate battler, and he's behind an offensive line that's a little bit flawed, and he's just trying to fight his way out of it, and gets caught up in the wash, and his toe gets caught, and now he's done. And they've been through it a lot since he's come out of LSU. He's just been injured. And he's tougher than hell, and the fact that it just is going to prevent him from playing for several months is it's just, I don't know, ironic. It's an overused word, an incorrectly used word, but like they played the whole preseason in the hopes that they could get off to a good start. Well, they do. They're 2-0, but now they lose him for 3 months, and so it's going to derail whatever their season would have been, obviously, because he's one of the best in the league.
And then as far as the Bengals going forward, do you think there is still a chance Browning can kind of stabilize things enough where Burrow, if he can come back, they're in the mix?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is you've seen it with him a couple of years ago, and he was more than competent. Like that's the thing in this league, right? Like you're often as good as your backup, and that's why Tim Hasselbeck said on the show, he said, I'm actually surprised, given that Joe's been banged up through the years, that they don't have a guy in the bullpen, so to speak, who's been a starter in a league. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not like you just go to the quarterback store and get that, right? That's the hardest thing in the world to get right, is that backup. Look at Jet. You're a Jet fan. You've lived it. So, I mean, I think Browning can kind of hold it down, but, like, are you going to get him back in 3 months or not? I mean, it's a lot to ask, but at least they've started 2-0.
Finally, Scott, Tampa Bay, Houston tonight, Chargers and the Raiders. What are the biggest storylines in each of these games that you're excited to be talking about on Countdown?
I'm a big Baker guy. Here's a guy who's number one pick in Cleveland. He bounces around, looks like he's done. He's found his home in Tampa. Like the week one against Atlanta is sort of the ultimate blueprint of how he plays. And a Houston team that, you know, a couple years ago, like all signs are pointing up, and then they didn't look good week one. So on their home field, you'd expect their best effort. And then to me, the Harbaugh-Carroll part 3 of this story, which goes back to Stanford, USC, then San Francisco and Seattle. It's just, these are two fascinating coaches that are both interesting in their own way, and they genuinely don't like each other. At least Pete doesn't like Jim. I like that when there's real rivalry, and both teams are 1-0, and with the Chiefs suddenly vulnerable, I think that AFC West game is very interesting, and that's my pitch to New Yorkers, to stay up until the wee hours of the morning watching us.
We'll be watching, Scott. Enjoy New York. Welcome to New York City, and really appreciate you joining the show.
Jake, appreciate your time. Nice to visit with you.